Good evening, I'm Garrick Zeiken.
And I'm Julie Newman.
We are in Camp Creek in Greene County, Tennessee to mark the one-year anniversary when the tornadoes ravaged our area.
This community was devastated, as were so many others, including Glade Spring in Washington County, Virginia, where we find News 5's Paul Johnson and Rebecca Pepin joining us live for team coverage.
That's right, Julie. We're in one of the communities that is still recovering from the tornado. We're going to have some stories on how that's going.
We're going to look back at the night that changed the lives of everyone that lives here in Glade Spring, and in fact, all across the region.
Meantime, Governor Bob McDonnell was in town today touring what is now being called the recovery area.
Yeah, Governor McDonnell was a very busy man, and Meredith, I understand he even planted a tree today.
PJ, Governor McDonnell was actually here in Glade Spring one day after the tornado touched down and changed lives. And walking the streets again 1 year later, he says shows just how resilient this community is.
Mr. Henderson?
That's right.
How are you, sir?
Yes, fine. How are you?
The home of Carlos and Elizabeth Henderson.
This all looks pretty new.
Yeah, it does.
Looks a lot different this year. The last time Governor Bob McDonnell walked Stagecoach Road, it was destroyed.
It's a phenomenal recovery.
This phenomenal recovery is what the governor saw across the county. All of it rebuilt without federal assistance.
As a result of that, we decided, look, we got to rely on our fellow Virginians.
That's exactly what happened. From volunteers to first responders, even heroic citizens. The governor says their continuing help and compassion is not overlooked.
The celebration is the fact that you all care so much about each other, that you can get people back on their feet with this amazing generosity.
And witnessing this recovery is nothing short of a privilege.
There's everybody.
Governor McDonnell gave me this fact on the generosity of the Commonwealth. He says together the state raised about $1.5 million toward recovery, and about $1 million of that stayed directly here in Southwest Virginia. PJ and Rebecca.
All right, thank you very much, Meredith.
And now we're going to head back to Greene County, where Garrick and Julie are standing by.
Well, when you see the progress there has been progress here in our area, but that is not the case everywhere.
Yeah, especially in rural areas where recovery is much more difficult.
And once you realize the lives lost and the homes lost, you really begin to understand why. Greene County was hit by 5 tornadoes. 7 people died, 239 were hurt. The damage totaled more than $12 million. In Washington County, Tennessee, there were 2 tornadoes. 1 person died. More than 600 homes were damaged or destroyed. The loss, more than $15 million. In Johnson County, Tennessee, 1 tornado killed 2 people. 24 people were hurt. 40 buildings were destroyed. 241 others damaged. The damage totaled $10 million in that county. And in Washington County, Virginia, Storm Track 5 meteorologists saw 5 tornadoes. 4 people died, dozens were hurt, more than 400 buildings were damaged or destroyed. The loss in that county alone, a staggering more than $42 million. And in Smith County, Virginia, there were 2 tornadoes. 1 person was hurt. The damage is estimated at $2 million.
And we just saw aerial footage, Garrick, of what that looked like a year ago. Well, News 5 went back up in the air yesterday to take you give you a look now at how it looks like 1 year later.
Right.
So the first stop we take you is right here in Camp Creek, Tennessee, where you can still see many homes that were damaged. There are abandoned houses, and many homes still have those blue tarps over them. We'll be live on the ground there in just a few minutes. And in Glade Spring, still signs of the damage, but many more signs of places that were rebuilt or ongoing construction as that area works to bounce back. We saw some stores that had been rebuilt, more trees that had been cut down, and fewer signs of what happened a year ago. And that's where we find Rebecca Pepin and Paul Johnson tonight. Let's go back to them now.
All right, thank you very much, Julie. PJ was actually here in Glade Spring just a few minutes after that tornado hit.
Yeah, imagine right now how beautiful it is. That night it was 2 o'clock in the morning. It was raining. The wind was blowing. It was scary. So recently I returned to Glade Spring to find out how they've made a comeback. We walked in from the interstate that night because the road was blocked. And as we walked down this ramp, I noticed a tractor and trailer on its side. And all we could hear were sirens. By the time we got to the end of the exit, I noticed this sign. It was all twisted and gnarled, and I knew we were dealing with a tornado. This is about the spot where the police barricade was set up. And I looked at the marathon station, and I noticed one of the pumps had blown over, and you could smell gasoline in the air. I think the biggest shock of the night was when I arrived here at the Iron Skillet restaurant. The tornado had blown a tractor trailer through the entire rear of the building. How terrifying was it?
It was very terrifying, and I didn't even see that until after the fact.
What'd you do?
I sat down on the side of the bed and prayed, just like anybody would.
Joining us now live is Storm Track 5 Chief Meteorologist Dave Dirks, and what a night that was. We were standing in the studio, and we thought the tornado was about to hit us. Let's listen in on what happened.
Tremendous amounts of hail the way it sounds right now over top Bristol. I'm not sure if that isn't like strong winds. Yeah.
Now, Dave, I was about 6 months pregnant. I remember our eyes locked with fear.
Oh my goodness, it got so loud in the studio you could not hear each other being 10 feet away from one another, and we really did not know. We knew a tornado warning was in effect. It was coming right up through Bristol, whether or not it was a tornado or whether it was actually the hail, so it was kind of a frightening moment out there. We were 3 hours into the continuous coverage, and we still had about 3 more to go, so it was kind of like the halfway point, but it was certainly bringing home to all of us. We later found out that you and I and PJ and the Storm Track 5 weather team, they're the only ones in the building that weren't hunkering down in the hallways, which was the best place to be, but
right.
It was a very scary moment.
Such fools we were.
Well, no, we had our jobs to do.
We had our jobs to do, and it was certainly a history-making night.
Indeed, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chief Meteorologist Dave Dirks, and you were not the only person you were part of this huge storm that blew across the country, and a lot of folks out there were relying on you. We met a young lady tonight who was wanting your autograph. She says she's frightened now every time she hears something.
I don't like that part of it, but it's nice to meet all the folks. Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much, Dave. Back to you all. All right, as we have heard, we have 13 people died in the tornadoes, and a fatal car crash death was also blamed on the tornado, bringing the death toll to 14. Here's a list of those we remember and those who died that night. Those victims were from Johnson County, and we've learned it has taken one of the spouses an entire year to talk about what actually happened.
You can imagine the emotion these people are going through. News 5 WCYB's Meredith Matchin was there, and now she joins us live with more on that story. Meredith.
PJ, Andy Isaacs still has trouble talking about losing his wife. He's like many in Johnson County, still in disbelief in mourning those that perished that night.
So you do have someone hurt?
The memories of that night stab Andy Isaacs in the heart every day.
It's just hard for me to talk about it. It's been rough. I know it's been rough.
The night a tornado swept into his life and took his wife, Dorothy, out of it.
I hollered and asked her, I said, "You reckon we better try to get out of here?" And just a few minutes after that, it got to lightning pretty bad.
In a matter of minutes, his life was about to turn upside down.
I looked back, and the walls from the floor just started to turn loose, and I could see out behind.
The Isaacs home was picked up on top of this hill, flew across this road, and landed at the very edge of this garden.
I was pinned down till I couldn't move at the time, and my wife, I heard her just like, it was just a soft voice, "Help me." And that's all I ever heard out of her.
Police told Isaacs his wife died there.